Men who have sold/donated sperm and gave permission for the child to contact you at 18. What is your story? My younger bro donated multiple times unbeknownst to me. Years later, my wife and I did Ancestry.com to get an idea of how diverse our backgrounds were, and wham! Started getting contacted by lots of people, over a dozen, saying we were close relatives. At first I was confused and asked the early ones about their parentage. They all had a similar stories. Single mom went to a sperm bank. Didn't take long to guess what happened. Call my brothers and asked. Younger one fessed up and said yes, he went multiple times. In fact, they told him he had to stop donating because there was a statistical probability his progeny could meet and date. At least they seemed ethical. I asked if it was okay if I gave them his contact. He was fine with it. The weird thing is that they all had his face, like one look at them and it was obvious who their father was. Anyway, this went on for a couple of years and they all connected with each other. Seems there is over 20 now, probably more. He has met a couple of them, but it was all casual. The whole thing is super weird to the rest of family to have all these close relatives who somehow are part of the family, but then again not really. I want to be a fly on the wall at this person's Thanksgiving. It'd be like a creepy version of that British This Is Your Life show where the soldier saved all the children in World War II. Then when they asked if there were any of those children in the audience, they all stood up. You mean Nicholas Winton, the person who saved hundreds of Jewish children from Czechoslovakia during World War II? For anyone interested, there are clips of this on YouTube. Do not watch them if you weren't planning on ugly crying today. U2.B. A guy I know in his 70s got a call from a guy in his 50s saying, "Hey, I'm your son, oh and I just learned I have a genetic disease, so your other kids should probably get tested." Credit to the guy in his 50s if that's the reason he called, just to warn his bio dad's family. Class move. I experienced something similar. I was adopted as a baby and had no contact with my bio family, beyond my mom visiting a couple times when I was too young to remember. Out of the blue, when I was around 13, we got a letter from her sister, explaining that my grandma had just died of diabetes and that I should be aware it ran in the family. My own mom couldn't be bothered to warn me, but her sister that she hasn't spoken to in decades stepped up and did it. My aunt and I exchanged letters and it ended up meeting when I was about 22. Still haven't contacted my mom, 'cause spelling is hard. I donated for 6 months in university. Twice a week. I gave consent to be contacted. That was close to 20 years ago now. I did call and ask once. My sperm resulted in 24 successful pregnancies. That was all the office could tell me. I have not done 23N or anything like that. Edit, added a missing word. Sitcom title, 24N. 27N. Had 3 of my own. Sir, you are fertile AF. Dude's got some swimmers. Needs to name his testicles Thorpe and Phelps. And his penis spits. I was a donor, and when this happened to me, it was okay. 4 separate offspring at various times over the course of about 6 months contacted me, all just as they turned 18 and records were open to them. It was cool for me to see pictures of them and how much they looked like me. It was also good to hear the stories from their parents of how I helped them conceive a much-needed child, which I really appreciated. But that was all. A few nice, polite emails were exchanged, some kindnesses, and then we stopped emailing. I didn't want or expect more. I'm just glad to know they existed, and that they got to connect with their biological heritage. I supposedly, as far as the donor system estimates, have a lot more out there, but I expect these are the only ones that will contact me, since I assume most of them will want to do it as soon as they can and all of my donations happen within an 18-month span. A few emails probably meant a lot to them. Showed that you cared but ultimately recognized that you weren't their dad. I emailed my donor at 18, sent a little biography and some pictures, and said I understood he wasn't my dad, and he responded with a "yeah, never contact me again." I haven't told my wife and kids and attached the worst, most faraway picture of himself he could. There are at least 18 of us kids, most of us know each other, and the ones of us who were interested in reaching out, maybe 5 or 6 of us, were super disappointed he was so rude. So from a donor kid, thanks for being kind, smile. Don't take it personally. For a long time sperm donation was sold to the donors as totally anonymous, no one will ever come back to you, and then that all changed over the last couple decades. Many people who did it when I was younger did so with the understanding that they would never be known to their potential offspring, and it must be a little jarring to have it happen now. Shit. I never thought about it, but if donated under the impression it would never, ever come back to haunt you, gave a fake name and all, and then here's 23N to ruin your life editing to add since everyone keeps asking, so I just want do 23N. Okay, but what if your mom does it and gets 20's grandkid listings? Your son finds out Hess got 15 siblings. Your aunt, cousin, brother. Therese too many people. DNA testing makes the permission difficult to enforce. My friend's dad donated in the 80s and some of his offspring recently reached out to him after DNA testing. I'm adopted and my closest match on Ancestry tried to extort me for $5,000 to give me information about my biological siblings. I refused and still can't find them. I.inger.cumsaferx.png edit. Since I got a lot of messages and stuff about this, I uploaded a screenshot of her comments. To add some additional context, my birth mother doesn't want to meet, so I have been attempting to gather information about my siblings who were also adopted in a closed adoption. Rather than share any information she had about my siblings, she offered to give me my mother's information for $5,000 against my mother's wishes as well, and then called me a dumbass when I refused. Edit 2. I reached out through the adoption agency when I was 18 to attempt to contact my mother, and she communicated at the time that she did not want to contact me. I know that this person is actually related to me and my mother because of DNA testing and because of information that my cousin would only know if she were in contact with my mother. Oh wow, duck that person. Not me. A friend of mine sold sperm when he was in his early 20s. He really needed the money. You can opt to stay anonymous but get paid more if you make it possible for your identity to be revealed. He opted so any potential kids could get all of his info after they turned 18. As the years went by, he was kind of dreading getting a call or email from a kid he didn't know about. Eventually he got a Facebook message from his son who had just turned 21 or 22. They started talking. It turns out a lesbian couple used his sperm to have 2 kids, both boys. He ended up meeting them. The women are really great and they seem like a really loving and happy family. He and his wife and kids have become friends with the 4 of them. He's really glad that he sold his sperm now because of how things turned out. Obligatory not me, but I don't think I'll get another chance to tell the story. An ex-girlfriend of mine has an uncle who had donated sperm back in the 90s. At some point, he started reaching out to the parents of his biological children to see if they wanted to meet their bio dad, and now, every summer, he flies out all the children who wanted to be in contact to Yosemite, CA for a week of camping. I remember the first, and only, time I went, I was shocked to know that at least 10 of his children come every year from all around the USA to spend time with him for a week. Apparently, the year I went with them was also the year that another one of his bio children got in contact with the uncle for the first time and spent the week out near Yosemite with all of her half-brother sisters. I don't keep in contact with the uncle or my ex anymore, but I can assume that more of his children have contacted him each year so they can spend time getting to know their bio dad. That's a future movie plot right there. This actually reminds me of the movie Fonzie. A guy discovers that he is the father of 533 children and some are looking for him. They eventually start to become friends and do stuff together. The American version with Vince Vaughn. Delivery Man, film, Wikipedia. Really like this movie. Funny enough, both Fonzie and Delivery Man are remakes of a French-Canadian comedy Starbuck. Although one of the original writers helped out on the US remake. I was donor conceived. I took a DNA test, his natural-born daughter took a DNA test. So really neither of us gave permission. There are 28 siblings so far. It was quite a shock. I wasn't expecting it and didn't know. I was 38. I've met the donor and most of the half-siblings. He's a cool guy. I think it is eerie how I see many of my mannerisms in him and the other siblings. I know there is a wide range of emotions for people who experience this sort of thing, but for me it was generally positive. One of my good friends was a donor child. Her parents gave her full permission and access to the donor's information, as he consented, but she never cared to meet him or contact him. She would say something along the lines of, apart from his biological role, he has nothing to do with my life. Edit. The family had his medical history prior to the procedure to ensure no complications. No need for the apart from containing her medical history he plays no role. Comment smile. Aside from jerking off in a cup for $200, he didn't do much to make me who I am. You guys got $200?